let's backtrack just
Okay.
a little bit. Tell us about your release as a POW in 1973.
Well,
How did that come about?
Well, President Nixon, when he took over, he discovered there was no standing Vietnamese army in South Vietnam. President Johnson had in other words, when they say, well, they're shooting us in the back, well, President Johnson said, take their guns away from them, and so the American soldier was fighting the war in Vietnam alone, except with our allies that supported us. But most of the Vietnamese were disarmed. And difficult for us at that particular time, we were cut off from the outside world. When President Johnson was in office, every new shoot down brought in encouraging words. You know, we had the thing, it can't last 3 more months, we'll be out of here before Christmas. But unannounced, President Johnson stopped the bombing in North Vietnam. And we did not get any new information for over 2 years. We were just shut off from the outside world. In fact, we found out that Neil Armstrong had walked on the moon on the back of a sugar pack that was sent in a care package. And we had no real knowledge of what was going on in America at that period of time. All we knew that was, we learned in the negotiations with the Vietnamese, it took them 8 months to decide what kind of table they were going to sit at. And it ended up with an oval table where the U.S. and the North Vietnamese sat, and then a little round table in each corner where the Viet Cong sat and the South Vietnamese sat. And that, it took them 8 months to make that decision. And then we had to change the command. And then the negotiations continued on. President Nixon took over. And the things we learned as time went on, and President Nixon was the first time a POW family had been invited to the White House. Up to that point, Johnson had ignored. In other words, if he ignored it, it didn't happen. But the first briefing that our families got from official sources was from President Nixon when he met with a delegate of American wives of ex-prisoners or prisoners of war at that particular time. In fact, President Nixon sanctioned them to go to fairs to speak with the Vietnamese. And that kind of opened up a line for us to receive a minimum number of letters and occasional packages. They approved us, International Red Cross wouldn't get involved because the Geneva Convention that the Vietnamese had signed, they would not honor. And so the American Red Cross had sent us packages, but unfortunately they found it on dead soldiers and dead Vietnamese soldiers in South Vietnam. So they ceased sending them, and so they started letting our families just send a small care package. It started out at 6.6 pounds. By the time we got it, it was around a pound or so. Because like I said, they filter out anything that was, quote, suspicious. In fact, they melted down our soap and to make sure there was nothing in it, and then they cut it up in little squares. And I said, it's kind of funny when you finally got to use it, you flip it one way, you had ivory, you flip it over, you had zest, and you flip it over, you had palm olive, whatever.
All makes sense.
And now that's a big seller in the country there, but the Vietnamese created it back in the 60s. But then we started to receive a few letters, and like I said, and a couple of packages. And then I saw things that really meant a lot to us. It was like, one time I got a package and I had a few pictures in it, and I had to explain to the Vietnamese who these people were. And as I was explaining to them, next thing a picture popped up. Of course, I knew that I couldn't change expression, I couldn't do anything, couldn't give them any suspicion whatsoever. All of a sudden, I just had a new third cousin, and I gave them their life history. And then when I got back to my roommates and I shared the picture with them, I said, I have a clue who this is. And they said, well, that's Jim Heitcher's wife and 2 children. And through me and my family, through the POW-MIE League, a picture was sent to me that I give to Jim in the prison camp. He never received a letter or package in the 7 years he was there. And I was able, through my family, to give him a picture of his wife and his kids. And I always said, if I'd have walked to Jim with $1 million in one hand and that picture in the other, I know which one he would have took. And it's always been that was one of the first signs that we knew that our families were together. I jokingly say that they prayed together, they played together, they cried together as they waited for us to come home. And so they were our strength. We were in a better situation than they were. We were in a known, they were in an unknown as to what was going on with us.
Right.
So we put a lot of pressure on our families with that simple unknown. But then we went kind of slow for a few months. And, like I said, when President Nixon took over, they started digging foxholes. And so that was exciting for us because they knew he was coming. They just didn't know when. And President Nixon, he realized he couldn't just walk away from Vietnam because there was nothing to walk away from. So he reestablished the Vietnamese army, got them under control, and in the meantime negotiated with the Vietnamese and the Chinese and all the people. And they reached a point in fall of '72 when we could really bring this thing to a close because the army could stand alone. And the next thing you know, it reached the last one. All these points of the war for both sides had been met, with the exception of the release of the prisoners of war. President Nixon says, we need to discuss this. The Vietnamese said, no, y'all just going home, we'll send them later, and we'll take care of this. President Nixon says, no, we're not going home without them. And he stopped the withdrawal of the last 20,000 troops in South Vietnam. And when they got up and stormed out of the meeting, President Nixon unleashed what was referred to as Linebacker 2. In a period of 11 days, we dropped more bombs than has ever been dropped in the history of mankind, not to advance the war, but to secure the freedoms of some 500 plus Americans being held in captivity. And like I said, as a result of that, the Vietnamese came back to the peace table, signed an agreement, and in January, and with the first group, we were in incremental release, sick, wounded, and in order shoot down. And we came out, 3 airplanes with 40 each Americans on it, came out on the 12th of February with incremental releases ended on in other words, the last American combat soldier and the last POW was going to be released on 29th of March, 1970. And I always say that was the longest period of my life because I came home to freedom and I left behind over 400 brothers. And I, as well as the rest, we walked on pins and needles to make sure that we didn't say anything or say anything that would then be interpreted that would make the Vietnamese mad and stop the release of the other prisoners.
Right.
And we could not explain that to the press. They were more interested in the Pulitzer Prize than the guys that we left behind. And we kept telling them over and over again, if you want to talk to us, see us on the 30th of March. Otherwise, up to then, you're not getting crap out of us. And we stuck to it. We wouldn't say anything positive, negative. We just, and we didn't want to, anything that we say to be sensationalized, and turn in. And so, that was a long period for us. And once that last guy was known to taste freedom, then as we say, wheels up, we were ready to talk, and we have been, most of us have been talking ever since.
when you knew you were going to be free, as you were coming home, this is a louder moment here, what were you most forward looking to having for dinner?
Having for dinner?
What foods were you missing that you really wanted to dive into?
Well, you know, we get asked that question 1,000 times over, and I come up to me, I wanted a good salad. You know, I knew all the, I guess a good salad meant there was going to be a lot of other things along with it. But every time they gave us a leafy vegetable, we got diarrhea.
Okay.
And because they use human fertilizer to grow their vegetables, just like they do in Cuba. And so, you know, like I said, that we don't have the system to deal with that. You know, and that's kind of something we have with the virus is that, you know, we just don't have the system to deal with that, you know, and so you wanted to, but, you know, I guess when you looked out there and you saw a smorgasbord, you didn't know which one you wanted first. You know, like I said, that I think that things we missed, you know, were ice cream, you know, some of the guys were heavy meat eaters, you know. We call them Yankees, you know, they were meat and potatoes, you know, and we Southboys, we love vegetables, you know.
That's good. You earned a Silver Star and you earned other awards while serving, but which one of those awards, which one of those awards means the most to you and why?
Well, I kind of like a friend of mine who's Bruce Crandall. He's a Medal of Honor recipient. And, you know, he was wearing his Medal of Honor around his neck. And he said, you know, somebody else made the decisions on this. And he lifted up his lapel and he had Army Good Conduct. He said, I earned that one. And that's kind of the same thing you look at, of course. You know, significance, this is the Air Force Cross, is second only to the Medal of Honor. And I am the first living recipient, I'm the first enlisted recipient of the Air Force Cross.
Could you hold that up so we can get that? I'm not sure. Is it already on camera?
Let me, there we go. But that's the Air Force Cross, it became a ribbon in 1962, and I was the first. Myself and Neil Black were the first recipients.
Okay.
And we received it for the mission in which we were shot down on. The Silver Star was my earlier mission. Legion of Merit was for our conduct, and of course the Bronze Star was also related to combat because it had a V on it. Mm-hmm. And the Purple Heart was 2. And then you get into the Vietnam Ribbon, you get into I got the Vietnam ribbon is consisting made up of 18 different ribbons, and I received 17 of the 18. I got there 3 days after the first campaign ended, so I missed that one by 3 days. So I only got 17 of the 18, and then you got the national defense, which is given to anyone who's, you know, so the one above, there's the Air Force Accommodation, that's the POW medal that they didn't come out with until 1988, and you know, things like that. But they all, in many ways, tell a story.